Good to see you. On April 8th, just a matter of weeks ago, I flew to Guatemala City at the request of the Nazarene Compassionate Ministries coordinator down there. And one of the things while I was on that trip, I got off the plane, made it through Customs and Immigration, hopped into an Uber, and headed across to the Nazarene Theological Seminary in Guatemala City, and proceeded to go to the Compassionate Ministries office and give them $6,400 of your guys' cash for the water project in Sechochoc that we raised through the Christmas offering. And where we are on that is the 78 water tanks have been ordered, and they're about 3 or 4 weeks out from fully being able to be available and be delivered. And the district superintendent and the local Compassionate Ministries coordinator are going to the 78 families, huts, that are going to be receiving these water tanks and filtration system that will get them clean water throughout the entire year, raising the 500 quetzales that they are putting towards it, because this is not just a straight up gift, but something that they need to buy into, which is about $66 that they've been saving for 2 years. They've been saving for 2 years to be able to buy into this, and those are the homes that will be getting them. So in the months to come, you'll be hearing more updates on that and seeing pictures and videos of the water tanks that you guys purchased being installed in homes in Sechochoc, Guatemala. So I dropped off that $6,400 cash to them and got a receipt and turned it into our treasurer. They got up the next morning. I picked my cousin Kevin McNichols up at the airport, and we got up the next morning at 4:30 a.m. and headed across Guatemala for the 9-hour drive through the mountains to the village of Chicahala. And Chicahala is one of the poorest areas in Central America. The average household income is $5 a day for a 12-hour day of farming, 12-hour day of working these fields that you see over here on the wall. Manual labor for 12 hours, you, my friend, can rake in $5. To survive through the month of October through January, when this work isn't available, the men of Chicahala and San Marcos and the surrounding areas have to migrate to Tapachulula, Mexico, to work 12 hours a day on the coffee harvest that we all enjoy and drink. On the coffee from Mexico, all of the men in this area do that in October through January, save up that money, and then they head back home to Guatemala. The average family size in Chicahala is 6 people. That's 6 people, 1 breadwinner, living on $5 a day. The grinding reality of life for 22-year-old Marvin Thomas cannot be revealed by the simple statistics that I just shared with you. Many families in Chicahala eat 1 meal a day. Generally, it's either corn tortillas that are just handmade corn tortillas and not a lot with them, or boiled potatoes. And 22-year-old Marvin was the only breadwinner in his family for the whole family because his father died of alcohol abuse. Now you can imagine the lure of alcohol for his father, who already struggled with it, but the lure when he's feeding the 5 mouths of his family, and no matter what work he does, making $5 a day, he gave in to the lure of alcohol and eventually died for it. And now 22-year-old Marvin, who you see on the screen, is getting up early in the morning and training for soccer, and then he works all day. And because he's such a good worker at 22 years old, instead of making $5 a day, Marvin makes $6 a day because he's above average. And then on the weekends, he would go to technical school trying to learn a trade so that he could make more money. But on $5 a day, he's supporting his mother, his 2 young sisters, plus he's helping out an older sister who is a single mother herself. So knowing that now, it's hardly surprising he decided to try his luck on the treacherous journey to America by joining in one of the caravans that you saw forming in Guatemala in the month of January. Marvin joined one of these caravans from the village of Chicahala. And he wasn't alone. 3 others with him from Chicahala, the San Marcos area, went with him. And one of them was his uncle, who was 51-year-old Edgar Lopez. Edgar is the brother of the woman in yellow on your right wall here. and she's also on the card in the seat beside you. Her name is Epifania Tema, and she's the pastor's wife of the Nazarene church in Chicahala. Her husband, Pastor Moises Tema, is the one on the wall who's pointing out to me families who live in nearby that you can see from there who have recently accepted Christ and have become a part of the Nazarene church in Chicahala. So why would Marvin and his uncle Edgar join a caravan in Guatemala in January of this year to cross the border with coyotes, human smugglers leading the way? Well, Marvin's reasons are pretty clear at 22 years old. He's making $6 a day. He's got 5 people who are depending on him, and he's the only breadwinner. He's got them depending on him, and they cannot take care of themselves in that economically oppressed economy. So that's one reason. Another reason he's more than willing to join the caravan in January is that when he arrives in the United States, the word on the ground throughout Guatemala and these mountains that you see here, the word on the ground is when you get to the United States, you'll receive free housing, free food, education, and health care. While you get on your feet, you will be able to get a good job and make a lot more money. But while you're getting on your feet to do that, you'll be able to be taken care of at the same time. So that's alluring to him. Making $6 a day. He also had reason to believe it was a good choice because as we drove through the mountains of Guatemala and back into San Marcos and into the village of Chicahala, you would see a lot of huts along the way, and every now and then you would see one that stood out more so than the others. Maybe it had a concrete floor. Maybe it had a better roof. Maybe it had another hut addition built onto the side of the hut, but it was significantly nicer than all the other huts around it. And Kevin, growing up over his 22 years, knew those people and knew why their huts were better than his family's hut. It was because somewhere in the last 5, 10, 15 years or so, someone from that family had illegally migrated to the United States, had gotten a job, and was sending back money each month. So throughout these mountains of poor people, every now and then you'll see poor people who have a little bit nicer place than everybody else. So he had seen for his own eyes, if he could just make it to America, that could be his mom, his 3 sisters, his nephew. Now Marvin's uncle Edgar had a different reason for joining the caravan in Guatemala in January. He was trying to get home to America. He had illegally come to America in 1993 and for 26 years lived and worked in Jackson, Mississippi. And in 2019, Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents raided the chicken factory where he worked. In 2019 was the last time he saw his wife and his children in Jackson, Mississippi. He spent a year in an ICE detention facility here in America before he was finally deported back to Guatemala. So when he got to Guatemala, where he had not been in 27 years, he went to be with his sister and brother-in-law in Chicahala and became a part of the Church of the Nazarene there, where I'm sitting in this picture up against the church building on the right wall, listening to his brother-in-law's story of what Edgar had gone through and taking notes on it. So I asked, why are people so interested in carrying and joining the caravans? And they said, well, one, when you join the caravan, you're handed $100. No one knows where the money's coming from, but they do know that it's coming from political operatives of some sort in the United States. So when you join the caravan, a cartel gang member will hand you a $100 bill for joining the caravan, and then you have to stay with the caravan. But what they tell you is you cannot use this $100. You need to save this for the journey from Guatemala all the way through Mexico, all the way up to the border. Along the way, people will give you food, they'll give you water. Being a part of the caravan, you'll be taken care of. But when you get to the border crossing of the United States, you need that $100 to pay for your point of entry to the United States. So being handed $100 like that is attractive. And when they're told that, they're not told that they're going to have to give it at the border as they go to join the caravan. They're not being told that they have to give it at the border for passage. The coyotes are the only ones who can get you through the border controlled by the cartel to get into the United States. That's another reason to join the caravan. Another reason they join the caravan is it's the fastest way for them, for 22-year-old Marvin, on the left side of your screen. For him, it's the fastest way to get to work that pays. And the promise of while he's getting on his feet, because working for a living wage is all he really wanted. He doesn't want free housing, free health care, free this, that, and the other, but he's looking forward to getting that while he gets on his feet. Some of you will remember this news story from January 25th of this year. It was all over the news. I remember seeing it, and I'm going to read an article of it for you from BBC News. Police found 2 burnout vehicles on Saturday, and initial findings indicate that 19 people were shot and then set on fire. Violent drug gangs operate in the area where migrants also try to cross the border into Texas, and officials said the victims may be undocumented migrants. The northeastern state of Tamaulipas is known for violent killings and disappearances, often linked to the powerful drug cartels who run the territory. The Mexican government is fighting what it calls a war on drugs, and the Mexican security forces have previously been accused of detaining suspects who later go missing. In the latest incident, the bodies were found near the town of Camargo that borders the U.S. state of Texas. Autopsies are underway, but the Tamaulipas State Prosecutor's Office said that the poor condition of the remains of the bodies was complicating the procedures. An investigation has begun to determine if people killed were migrants traveling from Guatemala to try and reach the United States. Officials have contacted the Guatemalan consulate, authorities in Mexico, to provide the necessary information and try to identify some of the people who they believe to be Guatemalan migrants. In recent weeks, a group of about 7,000 people had been traveling from Guatemala to find better life in the U.S. Drug gangs often extort money from migrants traveling through their territories and run people smuggling operations that take advantage of people's desperate wish to come to North America. Pastor Moises and his wife found out in February the 4 people from their village in Chicahala and San Marcos and the Nazarene church in Chicahala, including Marvin and Edgar, the pastor's wife's brother, the pastor's brother-in-law, were 4 of the 19 people executed in their van, towed to another location, and then set on fire. Why did this happen? Well, the coyote that the 4 of them from Chicahala who had signed up with to take them to the caravan and take them across, he was a local coyote. One possibility is that he saw an opportunity when he got to the Texas border to get through without the cartel paying the cartel, and he could keep the $1,900 for himself. That's one possibility. The other possibility is that one cartel, the Gulf cartel, is being infiltrated, and the Zeta cartel is trying to take over that same border passage right there, and there's a possibility that the Zeta cartel stopped this particular group of people and said, "You give us the $1,900. And the coyote knew that he would be killed by the Gulf cartel if he didn't, and then the Zeta cartel shoots them all up, tows them to another location, and sets them on fire. But either way, it's all over territory and $1,900. In March, 12 Mexican state police officers were arrested for the execution of these 19 people working for the cartel. So on January 24th of this year, when I was standing right here on this stage at the age of 51 years old, preaching the final message in our series, The Truth About Your Trials, your fellow Christians, your fellow Nazarenes, Marvin, 22 years old, Edgar, 51 years old, were being murdered by Mexican police on behalf of the Gulf or Zeta cartel. over territory in $1,900. In Genesis chapter 12, verses 2 and 3, God made a promise to Abraham that extends through all of us who are followers of God, that he said to Abraham, I'll bless you for your faith. You'll be a blessing to others, and the whole world's going to be blessed through you. Let's look at it on the screen. I will make you, this is God saying this to Abraham, I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make you famous, and you will be a blessing to others. I will bless those who bless you, and curse those who treat you with contempt. All of the families of the earth will be blessed through you. This passage is directly talking about the coming of Jesus Christ through the lineage of Abraham, and that the whole world is going to be spiritually blessed because of Abraham. And Jesus is going to come through that line. That is the meaning of this passage, but this passage also contains another meaning and another application for Abraham. Abraham was not going to be there to experience that down the road. His direct descendants were not going to experience it, but what God says to him is, I am going to bless you and your descendants. I'm going to bless those who follow me so that you in turn can be a blessing to others. Now, this meaning of that passage is continued throughout the entirety of Scripture, that those who follow God are blessed so that we in turn can be a blessing to others. We're never blessed just for our own sake. We're blessed so that we in turn can be a blessing to others. Let me fire hydrant you on this one for a moment. Deuteronomy 15:11, for there will never cease to be poor in the land. Therefore I command you, this is prescriptive for all who follow Christ, you shall open wide your hand to your brother, to the needy, and to the poor in your land. Psalm 37:21, the wicked borrows but does not pay back, but the righteous is generous and gives. Proverbs 19:17, whoever is generous to the poor and lends to the Lord, he will repay him for his deed. 1 Timothy 6:18, they are to do good, to be rich in good works, and to be generous and ready to share. What can I do about it? What can we do about it? What can we do about it? This is a question I asked myself 20 years ago or so, when God put his thumb in my back, a calling on my life to start a church. It was not my desire. The last thing I wanted in my life was to start a church or pastor a church. But when God put that calling on my life to start a church, and Mary and I sold everything we had and moved back into the area to start the church, one of the things I kept asking myself is I could just see what God was going to do through the life of the church here in Central Ohio, one of the greatest and richest places in the entire world to live. People, you got it better than anyone in the world. It's so awesome here. And I was thinking about that way back then, and I thought, you know what? As we continue to grow the church, I always want to keep our hearts and minds on people in our part of the world who are politically and economically oppressed. So many of you have been a part of and have spent time in and given hundreds of dollars and thousands of dollars and tens of thousands of dollars to the 10-year economic development project and church development project that we did in Nicaragua, where we sponsored over 100 kids and took literacy in the village of La Carbonera and the surrounding villages from 0% literacy with the kids to 100% literacy for everyone who participated in our program. We built a multi-use church, classroom buildings, a parsonage for the pastor. We opened up a health clinic and a pharmacy. We built a walking bridge over the river that completely changed the economic situation for these people, where for 6 months of the year they were cut off from being able to cross the river. We built multiple houses for people who needed it. We set up a microloan system that you guys funded, where they could borrow $75 or $150 and farm their land, and we did all that. And now we've moved. You know what's so cool about this? A couple things are cool about the work that we did in Nicaragua. One of the cool things is now a lot of you have these kids in their 20s now who are 8 and 10 years old friending you on Facebook. And we see the work that they have. We see the education that they're continuing. We're seeing the life that has become of them because you 12, 13 years ago, invested in them. And there's not a week goes by that I don't interact with some kid who grew up in La Carbonera, Nicaragua, on social media and what's going on in their life, and it is awesome. The other thing that is a side note, just because Kayla Hamilton happens to be here today, she came back with her heart changed from Guatemala, or from Nicaragua, so much so that she got a tattoo of Nicaragua on her arm, so her mom and dad aren't happy with me about that. But anyway, that's a whole other subject. So what can we do about it now that we've moved from Nicaragua to focusing on our work in Guatemala and compassionate ministries? We can't change the economic situation of 4 billion people who could use their economic situation changed. But when we started this church, I said from day one, we're going to change somebody's economic situation. So we lasered our focus on those 5 little villages there in northern Nicaragua with District Superintendent Dennis Espinosa and Compassionate Ministries through his wife, Mercedes. And now we've moved our attention to Guatemala, and that's why throughout this summer into early fall, there are going to be 78 homes without access to water year-round who are going to have access to water year-round because of you. So what are we going to continue to do? One of the reasons that Damaris had asked me to come to this community is because she knew that this pastor here on the card in the seat beside you, I've spent enough time with her talking to her about what we as a church want to be able to do in development in people's lives in a way that will really make a difference. And so she had me come down because she wanted me to hear this story. She wanted me to be in this village and talk to this pastor and hear what's going on. And she knew this pastor's heart and the way that he thought about his community was about more than just growing his church, but he really wanted to be a part of changing the lives of people in his community. So here's one small snapshot, one very small snapshot of the types of things we're going to be able to do over the next couple years as a church and participate in helping people's lives. I was in a meeting 2 years ago in Guatemala, and I looked out the window of the church that we were in, and I saw all these faces lined up down through there. So I thought, I'm going to sneak around and take a picture of this. And I got around the other side and took this picture and realized that every single one of them had on a beautiful handmade Guatemalan skirt. Every single one of them. I thought, man, that is beautiful handmade work there. And it's one of the things of their culture, even though it's poor, because they have access and labor is pretty cheap, they have access to this handmade clothing, that their clothing is absolutely beautiful. And I was already aware of this, but Pastor Tema told me his idea for one of the ways that we as a church can help them, and the Church of the Nazarene in Chicahala can help their people, is this on the next page, yeah, right there, that these skirts are made by hand on a wooden loom. That's how they're made. And this pastor for a year now has been working with people in his congregation about the idea, knowing no one would ever come along and help him make this a reality. He's working towards it without us, and that's the kind of people that we partner with, are people who are going to do it whether we help them or not. He's working on this without us. He's collected 13 families from his church who would have the ability to do this. And what he said is, if we can get a loom in each of their homes and train them on how to use it, their lives can economically be changed. It'll help the church, it will help them, it will change people's lives for generations. So on the next page, it's as simple. One loom, to buy a loom, costs about $400 to $500. The pastor has partnered with someone that he knows in the area that they're just wood and they're made out of wood, who can hand make looms. He makes wood looms and can do it for $160. It provides work for him in making the loom, and then will provide work for the 13 families. So for 13 families, that's only $2,080 for 13 looms to be built and be put in the homes of these 13 families that are part of this Nazarene church where I'm sitting here. And then he's partnered with someone that he knows that teaches people how to hand make these skirts and these fabrics on the looms for $100 a month for 4 months, that this person will come in and teach these 13 families how to use the loom, how to make the fabric. So where do you get the material? How are they ever going to sell them being back here in the mountains in this village? The pastor is already working on contracting, because they do this everywhere. They do this a lot of places throughout Central America, where they contract with a third-party skirt seller who will bring them the threads and the material. They will make it, and then he'll come back through when a lot of the work's done, pick up the skirts, take them to different parts of Central America, and sell them. So he's just paying them for the work. What makes this possible are the looms. So when your ship docks at port and you get off and you go look at all of those beautiful skirts, this is where they're being made. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So what are the results of this pastor having a heart to help his people economically and coming up with this one idea and already working to implement it? Is that working corn and beans or working coffee will make them about $80 a month, but in the contract with a skirt supplier, that same family, that'd be 13 families able to make $300 a month instead of $80 a month. That changes lives. That's just one short, quick snapshot of the type of work that we're going to continue to be doing throughout the country of Guatemala on a compassionate ministries level. The 78 water tanks that will be going in. We've been 2 years on this project to get these 78 water tanks in. It will be completed. COVID obviously slowed it down. It will be completed this year because of what you've given. Lives in northern Nicaragua have been forever changed because some of you for years have been giving hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars towards projects that change people's lives. And we're going to do the exact same thing with our focus on Guatemala now. With this, there's other ideas from pastors of some of the churches in the area to do some trades training within the churches of taking the 4 or 5 people who have the aptitude for it and teaching them to do electrical work so that they can go get a job that's different than beans or corn at $5 a day and make real money. There's all kinds of projects. These are all being worked on through Nazarene Compassionate Ministries, regionally, district-wise, and locally. We have a very long track record of integrity of this process, that if you give to this money is getting to those people, those projects, and lives are being changed because of it. I want the band to come, and the card on your seat is for your prayer time this week. I want you to pray for Pastor Tema and his wife. Her wife now, who this morning in her worship service is still mourning the loss of her brother at 51 years old who was senselessly murdered. In her worship gathering this morning, she's still mourning that. And so I want you to pray for them this week. I want you to pray for this church and this pastor and those 13 families, that their lives would be able to be changed and that the gospel would continue to be spread because we care about people. That's an exciting thing to get to be a part of this week. That's an exciting thing to get to be a part of. We're going to do 2 worship songs at the end of here in just a moment. And as we do, Desiree, you can go ahead and start having those passed out however you want. Would you bring me one real quick? We're going to pass you out a sheet that if you choose how you can participate in these projects. And some of you remember us doing pie and cake auctions, which in our new context, we're not doing those anymore, but we still need to fund the compassionate ministries that we're doing in Guatemala. There's a QR code on here that if you just open up the camera on your phone and hold it over that, it will open up a link where you can directly give with a credit card, and that will go directly into a fund here at Newstart Church that will be going to Nazarene Compassionate Ministries. And also the second 2 are on how you can write a check. If you write a check, make sure you write Guatemala in the bottom on the memo, but also don't put that check, if you write one in the weeks to come, don't put it in the offering box. There will be a box on the coffee cart that says Guatemala Compassionate Ministries, and you can drop that check in there so that we can make sure it gets designated to the right spot. And you can participate in this. Greg, how much are we trying to raise? How much compassionate ministry work do we want to do in Guatemala? If we raise $2,080, we'll buy 13 looms and we'll be done because that's all the money we have. If we raise $28,000 over the next year, 2 years, we'll continue to be able to do water projects, microloan projects, and these types of projects that will economically change the lives of some people who need their lives changed, all through the work of Nazarene Compassionate Ministries. It's exciting to be a part of. Let's go ahead and stand and worship together this morning.